It's the Man United debate show with me, Mike Sweeney. Guest this week, Pete Spencer from the Manchester Evening News, and that Busby legend, Wilf McGuinness, the man who gave me my break in football when I was 35 years of age. Gentlemen, welcome at the end of a really busy week, so let's kick off with QPR and your impressions of what looked like, really, a fairly tight result.
Well, it was closer than we expected. I mean, it was a late goal, wasn't it? I thought it was good to get Tevez back in form and doing a bit because he must have been feeling a little out of sorts, having not been the first choice. But obviously, it was the idea that some of the young kids were coming through, and it proved again at the weekend, didn't it?
And how did you feel the young kids were, in your humble opinion?
They did well. They need games, obviously, and that's why the Carling Cup's great. The longer they stay in it, the more games the young players are going to get. But I was impressed with some of the young players.
There's been a fair amount of speculation over the last week or so about whether they will actually pay the money for Tevez. He doesn't look himself as if he's particularly happy. I mean, that's, from a fan's perspective. How do you see it?
Well, he has said that he's not happy with his form, and he hasn't been getting as many games as he would hope for. But and I see him a potential target for Manchester City as it happens, because I don't think Fergie's exactly happy with him, particularly with the kids coming through. But our managers like to keep as many players around them as possible. What was telling was the article in the Evening News where Cole, who left United too early, as he now admits, saying to Tevez, don't leave United, it's only downhill from United. There's not many players do better when they leave United.
Wilf, why do you think that the gaffer isn't 100% happy, if he isn't?
Well, we don't know that, but I think the fans are 100% happy with Tevez because he gives everything. It's as though his life depends on it, the way he plays his game, and I think the fans love him for that. And I think they'll stand for mistakes and things like that because he's always working and he never stops, and that helps him as far as the fans are concerned.
It's a shame they can only pick 11 players, though. I mean, you've got to look at the form of Ryan Giggs, for instance. I mean, he's lasted 2-3 years longer than anybody expected. You would imagine that a player who was based on speed can adapt his game. He plays in all different positions now, so intelligent. He's keeping players out like Nani and Tevez. And so you can only pick 11, can't you? And it looks like Tevez isn't his first choice.
With Tevez, is it anything to do with the price? Is it the fact that I think it's 30-odd million they've got to be paying out? And is it just a financial thing? For instance, if it was, say, 15 million, would they keep him?
Well, my kids banned me from mentioning credit crunch because it's my excuse for everything. But it was like spending on their clothing. But I think that if it was now, would he be valued at 30 million? Is he worth 30 million pounds? That's the key question. That's what's going around at United at the moment. But is he more of a 20 million pound player, for instance?
But that's not going to happen, is it? I mean, they're not going to reduce
they've either got
the price,
to pay 30 million or not 30 million, so they can't go
Why
back
do you
on
think, though, that it did take a fairly long time for a strong Manchester United side to put just the one goal in? It was a penalty as well. It wasn't from open play.
Well, that's been happening this season. To me, towards the end of last season, they were the best team in the world. They were playing magnificent football to win the double. And I think this season, new players are coming in. I mean, Berbatov's in, and it's taking a little bit to settle down, which they do, players do. And I think that's been the problem, why they haven't buzzed as much as they did at the end of last season.
We've played half games. I've seen the whole season in half games. First half against Everton, magnificent, but didn't kill them off. And lots of other games in which they played in fits and starts. Against Chelsea, for 20 minutes, thought you were going to overturn Chelsea, and then they seemed to take the foot off the gas, which brings me to Saturday, and everything seemed to go into gear. Why was Saturday the one?
Oh, they're only playing Stoke.
Yeah, but come on, this is the Stoke that frightened Arsene Wenger to death, isn't it?
It is. I thought Fletcher is coming on strong now. I think he's playing brilliantly. I heard one commentator say he's almost as good as Scholes. Won't go that far, but he is getting there. He shows loads of energy. I think Berbatov is coming to his own. I hope he's not going to be one of them players who only scores against poor teams, mind you. But Berbatov, the way his style of play, he seems as if he's like floating on air. He's clearly an absolute class act, and really he's good enough for United to adapt to him a little bit as well. Some players come in, they've got to go the United way. I think United have changed the style a little bit and attack more intelligent up front.
When you watch him play, Berbatov, and remember that from a fan's perspective, because we're not as knowledgeable as you guys, you sometimes look at him and think, he's not tackling back, he's not harem scarum. But after a bit, game on game, he does something and you think, wow. And suddenly you come round. What do you think we get from him?
Well, don't forget, Cantona didn't chase back and things like that. And Paul Scholes, we don't want to tattle.
No, we don't. But he does.
Yeah, well, that's... but I think... He just gels in. He's just gelling in and getting the odd touch that's absolutely brilliant. But he doesn't chase back as much as somebody like the fans or me would like to see. But you can't have everything. Cantona didn't do that, and look what he did for Manchester United. And so
looking at him on Saturday, do you feel that that's something, if United do come to terms with that it will be an asset in the long term?
He's like a thinking man centre forward. He's not a battering ram by any stretch of the imagination, but he's tall. He gets on the end of things, and he sort of like plays the killer ball regularly, more often. I bet if you analysed the number of killer passes he attempts, it's more than any other player. And I love the partnership he's starting to build up with Ronaldo now. I think that's working.
Well, I watched him the other week at one point, and he did 10 proper telling passes, and each one was to feet. Each pass was absolutely perfect. So I see where you're coming from on that. Ronaldo's body language, we've been analysing it all season, and the celebrations for those 2 goals were the first this season, in my humble opinion, that echoed last season's celebration. He suddenly came alive on Saturday. Why?
Well, I've met him the odd time. He always seems sort of a happy sort of chap to me. I've never picked up on this idea that he's suddenly sad. I mean, you've got to think there are other things going on in the guy's life, and he might be feeling he's had a bit of a barney with girlfriend, perhaps, and maybe something's happened in his private life, although I don't like that word very much in my job. But I think he is happy at United, although at the back of my mind, I always think he'll end up at Real Madrid one day. I hope it's not at the end of this season. I hope it's for many, many years to come. And I was particularly impressed when Bobby Charlton, and you can't have a better judge than that, said that he's better than George Best. I mean, I was astonished.
That's an amazing comment, isn't it?
He was, and that was the back page lead in the evening news, wasn't it, that night? So obviously he's a brilliant player.
Wilf, you saw Georgie at his peak. What do you think of the comparison between the two? Put you on the spot?
No, you haven't put me on the spot, because I'll wait till he's finished, Ronaldo, before I judge him alongside Best.
How is he at the moment?
He's doing great, and I think he's got this ability to score from anywhere, and it's terrific. So I'm quite happy with him, and I think he will go to Real Madrid when he's 34.
Yes,
so.
Yeah, I'll be happy.
What do you think about the 2 goals? I mean, the keeper got some criticism, but if you're watching those in slow motion, even then the ball was moving.
Yeah, great free kick, so that's a plus. But the one I was happy with was Danny Welbeck. That was the coming on and doing what he did, scoring, like he said, at the Stretford end, a Manchester lad. I thought that was terrific.
What do you think, Pete?
Well, I can't get enough of these young kids coming through for me. I think it's important for all levels of football that there are local heroes. I mean, it's happened at City a few times, hasn't it? And it happens at all our local teams. You get a few players that come through. They're always going to be crowd favourites. If Welbeck takes the advice from Fergie, as many other young players have done before, listens to him, he could potentially be, well, I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Ronaldo, but he could be the answer to a lot of United's issues. And he's free, and he looked great, and he's from a long sight, and we're going to be writing tons about this guy, and we're going to try and help him come through as best as
Why? What's special about him? I mean, you're really, really eulogising the guy. Come on, what's special about him?
In my other life, I've done a bit of refereeing, as you know, and I've covered United academy matches, and I saw him coming through, and you could see he was different to some of the other guys, and he has a proper Mancunian accent, And
IR.
that goal, yeah, sounds a bit like you. Oh, you're from Salford, though, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I can live with that.
Anyway, a northern accent, so we say, and that goal was splendid. And if he does nothing else, that dream to score in front of the Sheffield from distance. And those goals, his goal was probably better than the goals of Ronaldo, because Ronaldo's were free kicks, weren't they?
Watching the young kids, Will, Johnny Evans just sat in that back four as if he'd been there for months. The fact that we never noticed the fact that he was there. Do you see what I'm on about? Nobody had to help him. He didn't have to be shepherded along by Vidic. He just did it. What did you think of his performance?
I thought he was magnificent. But we better not go overboard with all the young ones so much. You know, just take it steady. And with Welbeck as well, because it's great for these lads. But I've seen them growing up. And Johnny Evans, I mean, he's played for Northern Ireland in full-back position as well as centre-half. The more games he gets, the better he's going to get, or should do. And the same with Welbeck in his time. But there's plenty of time for him. I won't go too overboard about it yet, because a lot of players disappear from the scene. I don't think he's going to be one. I'm hoping he's going to come through nice and steady, and in a year or so we'll see. It's like Bobby Charlton. Bobby Charlton was good. He scored a couple of goals in his first game, and then there was a period when he went quiet, he was left out, and this sort of thing. I think that's got to happen with the young players. We're
going to talk more about the kids in the second half of the programme. You're watching the Man United Debate Show with me, Mike Sweeney, with Busby legend Wilf McGuinness, and with Pete Spencer from the MEN. More football on the way. Welcome back to the Man United Debate Show. Pete Spencer from the MEN and the legend that is Wilf McGuinness from Manchester United's history, from the Busby Babes. With a book out we're going to talk about in a second or two. And just very quickly, back to Stoke. 3 kids on at the end of the game. Must have took you back in time.
Well, it did, and they did well, the 3 of them. Gibson, he did well, fitted in well. They all fitted in well. And it was good to see. But I'm agreeing very much with Peter when he says about Fletcher this season's come on a ton, and that's how players can come on, you know, the young ones as well. He's done really well this season.
Why can a player suddenly find those extra levels of skill that has made him, you're right, an engine room for midfield this year? Whereas last season, yeah, good player, good squad player, but, you know, stuff to do.
Well, I think it's all confidence with a player like Fletcher. He's surrounded by so-called they are superstars, but he probably come through the ranks, doesn't see himself in that bracket. He's coming to his own now. Maybe his experience with Scotland, because he's made captain there as well, would have given him a boost.
He also, by the way, Peter, had a bad injury when he was 16, 17, an ankle injury, had an operation, and he's recovered from that. That plays a part as well. So, you know, these injuries can affect your play, but he's come through, and it is, like you say, bags of confidence.
I look how he darts forward. I mean, it's like a little bit Brian Robson, really, the way he flies forward.
There's another compliment from you to him. So Wilf McGuinness's book's out now. A book, really, I felt that we've needed for a long while. I mean, you were there at the time. I'll very quickly tell you about a guy I spoke to in a musical capacity recently, and that's a guy called Pete Best, and he was the Beatles' original drummer. And I said, I'd rather talk to him about John Lennon and Paul McCartney and George Harrison, because he was there, as opposed to talking to a friend of a friend. You were there. A most momentous time in Manchester United's history. First of all, where were you during or at the time of the Munich disaster?
Yeah, I didn't go on the trip because I twisted my knee on the Saturday and it turned out to be a torn cartilage, and I was visiting a specialist, and he was telling me when I was going to have the operation, and we came out and there were placards all over Manchester saying Manchester United in plane crash, and that was the first I heard about it in town on the Thursday, and you couldn't believe it at the start.
I mean, you played with these guys. How great were that team? How great were the Busby Babes? You know.
Well, all I can say, and without exaggerating, because people do after a while, but I can say Real Madrid were a great team of the day. They won the European Cup 8 years on the run. And Manchester United, the Busby Babes, if they'd have lived, would have been Manchester United's Real Madrid. Would have been England's Real Madrid. They would have been winning the European Cup as much as Real Madrid, believe me.
Would Duncan Edwards have been the greatest ever player? Would he be
the greatest all-round player, without a shadow of a doubt. we had Best-Lord and Charlton who were different. You know, they all had something, but Duncan was the complete player. Sort of pick out the best of Brian Robson, the best of Roy Keane and the best of Steven Gerrard and put it all into one without any nastiness, and for me that was Duncan Edwards.
He was that good?
Honestly, he was that good. Bobby Charlton in his day, you say, well, I couldn't lick his boots, and look what Bobby Charlton did for Manchester United.
What got me is his physique when he stood there so proud.
He was only a young lad, wasn't he, at the time?
Well, he was 21 when he died. So
amazing.
Imagine some of the players stopping playing at 21 that we talk about today. You wouldn't remember them that much, you know.
I mean, one of the big riddles for me that's never been solved about Munich is the idea that United were pioneers. They had to get back in the country for a certain time, didn't they, to enable them to fulfil the fixture. There's some rule about you've got to be back in the country 40 hours before. And I understand it, and you can correct me, I know you will, that they had to get back, and that there was pressure on them for that plane to take off again. Because now, somebody like Ferguson said, well, hang on a minute, there's snow on the runway, we're not taking off, end. We'll stay in Munich another night. Now, I think United were under pressure to take off that day.
Not so much that, because there was one time before that, excuse me, when Manchester United were held up by fog in London, and we had to stay in Amsterdam the night before, so we weren't back. We were back on the Friday, right. 24 hours before.
Is that the real 24 hours?
Well, it couldn't have been 48.
Right, OK.
So I'm sure it wasn't 48 hours. But I know that if they if they were late for getting to a game, they would have been punished by the Football League, because the Football League didn't want Manchester United to go into Europe.
No.
Peter, are we going to see a new Busby Babes coming through, albeit Ferguson's Babes? Suddenly, instead of having Wes Brown's been the only relatively recent addition to the squad through the ranks. Suddenly, we've got the three kids that came on. We had Johnny Evans already on. We got Possible there on the sidelines. Are we seeing a new set of Babes?
Well, this could be Fergie's legacy to his successor, that the young players are potentially the best in the land. There's only really Arsenal challenging them, and maybe at City, although the City players are a little bit older and more established. I think that it's going to be so difficult in the game as it is now, where people want instant success. It's going to be hard to blood as many players as has happened in the past. Came close to it with that class of whatever year it was, with the Nevilles in and all the rest of it, and
Scholesy and Giggsy.
Yeah. So that came through, that grouping. But it's great to have a group of players who've grown up together. But the answer to your question, I think it's going to be very, very difficult, because where do you find a place for Rooney, Berbatov and some of the other superstars, Ronaldo, and players from all over the world? And that's what United fans have kind of expected. But if these players are good enough, they will get in the team. And some of them are from abroad, because they've come through under the academy system.
Do you think they're good enough?
There will be, I think, some of them. When you look at the De Silva brothers, you know, Fabio and Rafael.
What do you think of Rafael?
Oh, well, he's got... let's say the future looks very bright, but you mustn't forget that Fergie's fledglings in the 90s, they were something special as well, the way they came through. They were like the Busby Babes, no question about that. But he's got another group now, and like you say, so it can... The future looks very bright. We put it just at that. Yeah, they've work to do.
Babes with an international flavour, aren't they?
Well, you talk about where they're going to fit. He's still a babe.
He's only
young.
Only 21. So, we talk about him as if he's like 30. But you're right.
So let's move ourselves on, of course, because we've got Villa at the weekend, and they did a job on Arsenal. We're not looking here at. They've crept right up, you know. Very slowly but surely, and I think they're about 6th or 7th at the moment. What sort of a game have we got here?
Well, a tough game. I mean, they're the team that maybe people thought City would be in that situation, trying to break into the top four. They're the most likely at the moment to break that top four. In the paper this week, we've sort of charted the top 4 teams and put all the players up and said which of these City players would get into that top 14. And there's only one, Robinho. Nobody else would get in. You put Aston Villa there, how many of those Aston Villa players would break into those top 4 sides? Well, a couple maybe.
What's your feelings about the manager? Because he's a smart cookie, isn't he?
Martin O'Neill.
I thought he'd have been the England manager, but apparently too independent at the time, I think. But what do you think of him?
I think he's doing a wonderful job, and I think this is his best team that he's had. And it will be a tough game, but Manchester United have a great record at Aston Villa, so I'm looking that can continue. But it will be a tough game. It should be a very good game, and I'm looking forward to it. But a terrific manager, and I think he will break into the top.
He's definitely going to be on the shortlist we don't talk about. Definitely.
The shortlist we never ever discuss.
No,
the elephant in the room.
The one that's going to have about 4 names on that will include Roy Keane and Steve Bruce. And Martin O'Neill will be right up there. But, I mean, if you really thought about that, it would be somebody like Mourinho or Capello, because United have got to keep that kind of status as a fantastic international club side.
Well, it won't be McGuinness, that's for sure. On the list.
I'm sure the gaffer won't mind us talking about his demise.
Well, he has said it. He has said it himself. He said it in 2 years.
Who would you like to see managing Manchester United, the next manager? Come on, you're on the spot.
Mourinho.
You think Mourinho? Why?
Well, because he's got that. It'd be great publicity-wise. I think United have to work on that a little bit in the future against all these other teams. They've got to keep themselves in the forefront of the media. I think he's got the ability to win. He's got a good network of scouts. But my worry with him is what we talked about earlier. He might want instant success, and he might not see. He's not got a good record of bringing in kids. That's what I really want to say about that.
Who do you want to see?
Well, it's silly to talk and speculate when it's going to be 2 years.
Yeah, but these people are about, Wilf.
In 2 years, I'll tell you who I think is some of the good managers now.
Right.
And Wenger's a good manager he hasn't spent any money. He's got kids through, and his network was terrific.
That's a good point.
Not that I want him.
well,
no.
You said he will.
Yeah, I'm just saying good managers around. Jose Mourinho, yes, I do like for his arrogance. And the babes that are... Not the babes, the lads who've been at Manchester United.
Keane,
and Stevie, all these players come in. And who knows in 2 years who's going to be the man in the frame? Because it's going to be when he retires... that's the time.
I mean, you can see how things have changed. I mean, Sam Allardyce was being sit for that job not so long ago when Fergie first said he was going to retire and changed his mind.
Sorry, Sam.
no, but he was. You know, times change so quickly in football, don't they? Steve Bruce's stars a little bit on the up. Keano has gone down a bit. You know, it changes. It's just who's going to be the man of the moment at that time. I mean, but Martin O'Neill consistently produced. That team is improving in each. His career pattern is going up.
We're in a situation as well as we go into this weekend. The league has never been as open for years. I think there's about 5 points between 7th and bottom of the league, maybe less than that. So we do need, of course, 3 points. I don't think one's enough. Pete, thanks for being here. Wilf, all the very best with the book. You've been an absolute belter as always. You've been watching the Man United Debate Show with me, Mike Sweeney, with my guests, P and Wilf, and, of course, my last programme, by the way, for a while. Ali Mann will be taking you onwards and upwards next week. All the best. Cheers.